If you've ever searched for credible, in-depth coverage of Microsoft Dynamics 365, the Power Platform, or the broader Microsoft Cloud, chances are you've landed on MSDynamicsWorld.com, the largest independent digital source for Microsoft business applications, news, analysis, and partner resources. For almost 20 years, they've been helping partners, ISVs, and customers navigate the fast-changing world of business applications with clarity and confidence. Joining me today is Jason Gumpert, one of the founders of MSDynamicsWorld, to talk about what MSDynamicsWorld is, why their collaboration with IAMCP matters, and how you, our members of IAMCP, can get involved and benefit from it. This is going to be a conversation packed with practical takeaways, so let's jump in. Well, Jason, welcome to the podcast today. I'm really excited to have you on.
Hey, Anthony. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Excellent. I know we're going to have a great show today.
For sure.
Let's start off. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name's Jason Gumpert. I am the editor at MSDynamicsWorld. We are an independent news and information resource for the Microsoft Business Applications community primarily. So we cover everything from product news to channel news to what customers are doing and other trends as it relates to Dynamics 365, the Power Platform, and I say business applications. The term's almost not quite current anymore, but also it extends to Fabric and to Azure coverage as well. So we're watching those products from Microsoft, and we're kind of also trying to keep a pulse on what's going on in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll see us at events related to those topics, both community events and Microsoft ones. You'll see us on our site doing various things, writing and doing podcasting of our own and all sorts of stuff. So that's what the site's all about.
Well, I know we're going to spend quite a bit of time digging into the site, but let's hear a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and whatnot.
Yeah, sure. So before I did this, I was in the sort of IT consulting and, enterprise software services delivery and related kinds of roles. So I spent 8 or 10 years doing, setting up systems, doing coding, training to some extent, doing some pre-sales. So I've kind of had a variety of roles with enterprise software companies and with consulting firms. And I really grew to sort of enjoy and appreciate that industry. But I was looking for something different at a certain point. And, I met the co-founder of our site, Adam Berzin, who couldn't be here today, but he co-founded it with me and he's still helping me run it. And we both were sort of looking for something new, and we kind of jumped on this idea of a media business in the Microsoft business application space. At that point, it was all like sort of Dynamics on-premises stuff. And we can talk more about this, but we saw sort of our skills sort of complemented each other, where I had some technical background so I could get a website going. I had some writing experience and editing experience, and he knew software promotional, he knew software events and conference sales and publishing sales, stuff like that. So he had a sense from other places he'd worked of how some of that worked, and we saw a real gap from that.
Now, how long ago did you start it?
So I think we turned the site on in late 2007, really got it running in 2008. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm really looking forward. I know Rudy's got some questions for you. And I'll be honest, fellas, I'm looking forward to just kind of sitting back and observing this conversation because, Jason, I'm not sure how aware, Rudy's, role, extensive role in the history and evolution of IMCP, and just as you two are gonna, dive in and swap some stories. So, Rudy, man, I want to hand this over to you, bud.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, Jason, it's a real pleasure to meet with you today. I know we're going to have fun, going through the history of MS Dynamics World and IMCP and how we can all work together. Let's talk a little bit about, what gap in the market you were looking to fill when you first started MS Dynamics World.
Yeah, I think what we immediately saw, we started doing some of our own sort of primary research for, market fit and things like that when we started. And we knew that there were one of the things that really stood out to us, I should say, with the Microsoft channel and Dynamics was that there was already a healthy ISV and partner channel serving these customers. Microsoft's always been very partner focused, but when it came to actually reaching prospective customers of the Dynamics product line at that time, there were only two ways to do it. One was to go to a conference, and the second was to kind of like buy print ads. I mean, it was even just on the cusp of sort of like online search ads taking off. We're not quite at that point yet. So, but digital media had already kind of started to flourish, and it was certainly a thing that other channels were taking advantage of. But there was really, and when we talked to marketers in the space, we knew that they wanted to reach an audience that wasn't being served enough. And honestly, I mean, just from a media and sort of news coverage perspective, they weren't being served enough because it was an interesting space. I talked about my enterprise software background. So anyway, we kind of put those pieces together and decided that, that's what was going to kind of define us is we're going to be all digital, and we were going to get, generate revenue from marketers who really wanted to reach this market, but who had limited options at the time.
Okay. Well, you're in a highly competitive field, right? So there's a lot of industry partners out there, news and partner resources. How would you compare yourself to the other players in the marketplace today?
Yeah, I mean, we think of ourselves as a media company primarily. If you're trying to sort of define who we are and what we do, we have advertisers. We offer sort of marketing programs. So on that side of it, that's working with a lot of sort of channel partners primarily. But I think what allows us to kind of compete in the space and stand out and do and be sort of distinguished as our own brand is that we are so focused on this ecosystem, and that we understand not just like globally sort of the enterprise space and chasing winners and losers, but we're really focused in, and we're writing for a very specific audience, and hopefully they appreciate that, and that's what keeps us going.
Got a follow up to that. So how do people engage with your service? Do you have subscribers, or how many followers do you have? Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, the approach that we use overall is that we do put our most of our content behind a registration wall, not all of it, but a good chunk of it, and that's both the informational stuff, so like branded content that comes from vendors, but then also our editorial coverage. And so, to get access to it, you do have to register. So there's a registration wall, but it's free. And once you're registered and logged in, you have access to everything. So there's no fee. We've never charged our readers for anything, and that's the process. And we have 100,000 plus registered members on the site who have joined and who read and consume the content. So that's sort of the model of the user experience on the site. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, sure does.
All right.
Sure does.
Yeah.
I know it's difficult. You get to a lot.
I start
we're gonna
talking.
throw a lot of
Yeah.
questions at you. Yeah. All the points that we're going to cover. Anthony, do you have a question? I know you do.
Oh man, do I have just one? Really? Well,
Anthony writes a lot of prompts, by the way, just Jason. So
with the community and how the community has grown, since I think you said 2006, right? 2007. I mean, getting to 100,000, like what would you attribute, growth like? I mean, that's quite a lot of growth, and it's a big audience, a very, niche community. What do you attribute that to?
Well, like I said, I think what differentiates us is our real focus and putting hopefully a lot of interesting content out there, whether it's working with brands to put out things that they have developed or developing it with them, but then also our independent editorial coverage that, no one else is doing. I mean, even to this day, I'm often one of the only members of the press covering some events, right? I mean, it's not at the big ones, not at Build or Ignite, but or like NRF, where I'm one of many. But a lot of the time, I'm in there, or I have a writer who's in there talking to people that other members of the media just aren't, and there's a lot of value in that to our readers. So I think what keeps us going and what keeps people signing up and hopefully coming back is they see that they're getting something that they wouldn't get elsewhere.
Well, what's fascinating is how, in a very, to your point, a very focused, niche community, right? Being that expert, and then how, there's a coming together in terms of some partnership with IMCP, also an equally, very focused, community serving a very specific audience. Talk to us a little bit about, what's the backstory about the coming together?
Yeah, it's so exciting to be really putting some specific plans and really concerted effort into this right now. Um, IAMCP has really kind of been in my picture, like in my sort of view, since we began, right? I mean, I think almost since we began, if not to the very beginning, where I have always talked to partners. Over the years, I've gotten to know lots of people who run Microsoft partner businesses, and
Hmm.
a lot of them have do or have done or plan to do, work as part of an IAMCP chapter or take a leadership position. I think there's been a lot of events where an IAMCP meeting is happening sort of alongside another conference, right? I mean, because so many of the members will be in one place at one time.
Hmm.
And so I've always been aware of it. I think, to some greater or lesser extent, I've done some coverage that involved it, involved events or involved, uh, people who represent sort of IAMCP chapters. But it's always just been ad hoc, and it's been sort of, if I come across it, if it comes up, and I wasn't doing concerted planning around it. And I
Hmm.
guess what we've done now, and we'll talk maybe a little more about this, but we're actually talking more specifically to each other and putting some really cool plans in place to kind of help our shared audiences know about each other
Hmm.
in the areas that are relevant to them, and try to find ways to complement each other.
All right. Are you able to share a little bit more, or is that coming later?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too much that I can share specifically, but what I will say is that you're going to start to see more awareness. So hopefully, I think the first thing we'll be able to do is for members of this channel that care about some of the really important issues, or who are just looking to be educated on technology, on thought leadership, things like that. If they're our members, they'll get awareness of what's happening in IAMCP's
Hmm.
world with your events and your planning and your content, and vice versa. And one thing I've taken away from our conversation so far is that and I've always known this, but business applications are not the only focus of IAMCP chapters.
Hmm.
Perhaps they at sometimes are a relatively small focus, just depending on case by case or chapter by chapter. So hopefully we can help to sort of boost that representation for IAMCP as well, and get more
Hmm.
of these biz apps partners aware of all the good work that IAMCP is doing.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I think, and I'd be curious to get Rudy's perspective on this. Is he's got a lot more perspective on with IMCP than I do. But just thinking about what I've observed with IMCP as a great community, really almost like a vehicle for a lot of the partner to partner collaborations, and but also in helping navigate a lot of the Microsoft, like the programs, things and resources that are available, especially for the unmanaged partners. But then seeing with what you guys then bring to the table with just this host of, I mean, we're talking tens of thousands, of Dynamics partners, but also just the level of content and just seeing. It'd be really exciting to watch just see the level of partner to partner collaborations that are going to be able to increase between those type of partners in your community and our community. But also, I'm really excited just the level of education. I mean, I'm just curious. How and you might not have an answer for this. How do you see maybe leveraging some of that content into like IMCP? Because you guys got a lot, which is pretty remarkable. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I would see it as kind of it's all sort of opportunities to create new and better stuff, right?
yeah.
Whether it's new types of live webcasts and things like that, whether it's just writing and covering more good stories. I mean, I think one of the things we haven't done well enough from our side is we're not telling all the stories we could. I mean, there's lots of great partnerships, lots of great successes and wins that IAMCP is a part of. I hear about them sometimes anecdotally, and maybe don't track them down or whatever. And I think having this relationship will allow us to tell more of those stories. And I think people can learn from those examples a lot more than they do today.
Now, is most of your audience or your membership, are they here in the States or the Americas region? Are they spread out internationally?
It's international. I forget the exact. I didn't come with the exact percentages. U.S. and Canada are. U.S. is our biggest country by sort of members of our members. I think it's about 40%. Adding Canada is next. English speaking countries around the world come in right after that. India, the rest of Europe, and then I think we have some representation in Middle East and North Africa, and then the smaller portions are Sub-Saharan Africa and Latin America. But it is pretty well established across different audiences. And I'll just tell you the other two ways we do think about our audiences. One is on the sort of what kind of role in the ecosystem they have. So VARs and consultants, ISVs, and then customers and prospective customers of Microsoft are the ways we think about who our audience is, and we target different content to different groups. I mean, so we don't try to write everything for everybody. There'll be very partner specific content that we know that customers are just basically going to ignore because it's not relevant to them, and vice versa. And then ISVs sort of fit into that, I guess, into that partner side of things primarily. And then we also we think about the product, so we'll write specifically for Dynamics 365 F&O, Dynamics 365 Business Central, for example, or Power Platform coverage, or what it may be. But so we have audiences that only care about one of those products, and we sort of segment both on our editorial side, and really do kind of encourage our advertisers in the market and the partners who sort of publish content to our site to also think about that.
That's great. That's great. Rudy?
So since you've been around since 2007, you've seen the evolution of the dynamic space. I remember first getting started with, I've been around IAMCP since its inception, so 30 plus years now. And it's been real interesting to watch, and how Microsoft is really encouraging partners to change their business models and to take on a biz apps practice. So I think an organization like yours helps partners learn more to try to figure out if they can fit in that space, because it's a difficult move. You do have to have a solid business background to do that. And like I said, I've gone through the evolution of them, from the purchase of Great Plains and Solomon, Extapa, Nav, all the companies that Microsoft bought, and then the evolution of the North Dakota operation and how they all came about, and been in discussions with them, and how they blended that all into Dynamics. And so it's a big learning experience for partners. So I think there's a real opportunity for MS Dynamics World to work with IAMCP partners on joint initiatives and events to help educate partners more, because there's a real opportunity to grow their businesses, and the maturation of the IT space, from the 1980s to where it is today, is huge. So let's talk. Do you have anything that we should be watching out for on joint initiatives, or what are you interested in, in working with IMCP? Because we've got some really great partners.
So I don't know if I can name any specific joint initiatives yet. I think the first thing you'll start to see is co-promotion of our own activities, because that's kind of the easiest way for us to get started, I think, as I've talked with leadership at IAMCP. So you'll see that first. You'll start to see, I think this podcast is a good example, and probably from our side, you'll see some podcasting as well. And then, and then I think we'll go from there. So there's a lot of possibilities that we've been talking about and that we think really could be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'd like to do, upcoming Illuminate later, next year is, maybe we can do a joint podcast at the same place. That would be a lot of fun
that'd be great.
to do.
Yeah, for sure.
So are there particular regions of IMCP that you've worked with?
So I know I've done a little bit, at least with like the New York chapter.
Okay.
In the past, Jeff Goldstein has been someone who I've, who's been a friend for a long time and been really helpful. I just call him out because he's He's great.
He's everywhere. He's
Yeah.
everywhere.
He really,
He's
he
very
really,
active. He's
he's
great.
ubiquitous.
yeah,
That's it.
and really embodies the spirit, I think, of it. I mean, when I think of what the values of the group are, I sort of tend to think of what he always talks to me about, right? But so yeah, and then other than that, it's been fairly scattered. I mean, I'll attend a webcast here or there when I'm allowed to or able to. You know, the conversations we've been having have been at the Americas and the international level for these new plans that we're talking about.
Since you mentioned working with ISVs, are there any particular ISVs that you see are bringing strong products to the market that would help our IMCP partners?
There's plenty. I mean, I've learned so much from the various ISVs out there. I'm not going to call out any by name just because if we work with quite a few and they all do different things, but I think I'll just give you a couple themes that maybe would jump out. I mean, the main one that I'm thinking of off the top of my head is, you talked about all the different legacy products, right? And one of the interesting themes over the last few years has been the evolution of companies that have been focused on GP, which has been a hugely successful ERP product in the SMB space, and had a great legacy and had great success over the years. But it's sort of winding down now, right? I mean, Microsoft set end of life dates for it in the next 6 years. And they're really encouraging everyone to move to Business Central in the cloud, right? And that's both the partners and moving their practices over, and they hope GP customers will come along for the ride too over the next few years. One of the really interesting things has been to see some of these really established, really knowledgeable ISVs who have great products that work well and have served thousands of customers on the GP side, evolve their businesses to not only have get their products working in Business Central, but to align with that market, which is obviously much different than the GP market. It's international. It has, it's just architecturally different and technically different. It has to fit in. Product fits a little different. So, watching some of those companies sort of make their way in there and then sort of actually find some success, find traction, do things that hadn't been done in what is another very old legacy sort of channel that's evolved over the years. Business Central is quite modern, but it dates back to Nav, like you were saying. And that was really an old school ERP product that was a very different beast than what you see today with Business Central. So watching ISVs move from one to the other is probably one of the things that I think is really interesting. And then, I think if you want to go to sort of the most current, I'm seeing glimmers of a very interesting and unique sort of AI scenarios that a few ISVs are bringing to the fore. I wouldn't call any out just because, I mean, honestly, none of them are proven yet. I don't think they have, they're great ideas and they seem really interesting, but I don't know that any of them have really established themselves yet in the market. So I won't call any out by name, but I think that's the other kind of on the far other end of it, where ISVs are doing some interesting stuff.
Yeah, well, there's a significant opportunity with AI in the ERP world, but it is going to take some time because it's just a security issue more than anything else. Is from the CIOs that I talk to and CFOs especially they're very curious, but they're also very wary of it at this point in time. So I do know that.
Yeah, I mean, and they're living in a world. I mean, I was at an event recently where people were sharing sort of what they're doing with AI in a bit of a roundtable, and it's all personal productivity stuff is what they're all talking about for themselves and for their organizations. I mean, they're doing stuff that they think helps their organizations, but it's all stuff at the personal productivity level with Copilot, with Claude, with other generative tools, right? So there's a bit of a step up that's going to have to happen that, like you said, deals with those big security and data questions, and as well as process and performance and cost.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit more about working with IAMCP. From your perspective, why should IMCP members pay attention to your organization, and what value can they get from it?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they can learn something that they didn't know already, whether it's coverage that we're doing of an event or coverage that we're doing of some product news that they might not have been aware of right away. Whether it is educating themselves on products and services that they could use in their businesses that they didn't know about. Those would be hopefully, and just the ability to tell stories that maybe they didn't know about, or trends that they haven't been tracking yet. So I mean, hopefully we can do the work that makes those types of content available to them, and it is differentiated in some way from what they already do and already know.
Anthony, do you have some questions?
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback on that. So, as a media company and you're providing just an immense amount of content, maybe, and I know you touched on it a little bit in the beginning, but maybe if you can break down like the all the various content like formats that are available, and with specifically then, because my head is at, as a marketer, it's like, okay, can MS Dynamics World help partners grow their business, right, and strengthen their Microsoft relationships and stay ahead of these trends. So maybe talk about like the different types of content that are available and how they can interact with that to help grow their business, stay ahead of trends, or align closer to Microsoft.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Let me start with just one other kind of perspective from Rudy's previous question, which leads into it, which is that we'll do all that kind of coverage, and hopefully it gets traction with people who are also involved with IAMCP. But getting them to getting more people and organizations to contribute to our site is always really, really important to us, and more stories. And then, let me talk about the types of content and the way that the formats it can take, right? So I'll try to break it down briefly here. Kind of the main sort of editorial thing we do is articles. So you'll see articles on our site written by me, written by members of our team, also written by subject matter experts in the community, right? And that's oftentimes experts who work for a partner organization, independent consultants, that kind of thing. So we have articles, and then we have we have podcasts, and those can be either, some of them are sponsored by a sponsor of ours, and then some of them are just me, talking to someone and trying to tell a story, learn about something, a trend in the space or whatever. So articles, podcasts, and then we have webcasts. So we'll run like live, 1 hour webcasts. Again, some of those are sponsored, some and branded. Some of them are just educational. And we have all sorts of those. We have a really busy webcast schedule coming up for the rest of this year. Then beyond that, we have other kinds of branded content that companies will bring to us, that partners, VARs, or ISVs will bring to our site, and those are all very clearly branded as coming from these companies. But that's white papers, case studies, videos, other kinds of ebooks, blog posts. So, which is sort of a newer thing that we just launched. So companies can blog on our site, or kind of duplicate or kind of recreate blog posts when it makes sense. Yeah, so that's, I think that's the range of types of content that can go on our site right now.
Mm-hmm. So now, so let's talk a little, just because I'm thinking about like with growing their business. Obviously, there's an immense value on the education side, but also where I'm thinking around like the demand gen and some of the lead gen possibilities. So when you talk about sponsored content, that's like I know how a lot of those mechanisms work on other type of media companies' websites. Maybe you want to share a little bit about what that could look like, the sponsor content specifically.
Yeah. So for any branded content on our site, I've sort of explained some of the elements of it, but if you're visiting our site as a reader and you want access to white papers and reports and videos and all the rest, you have to be a registered member. Once you're in and you have an account, you can consume whatever you want, right? So you can watch videos, you can download white papers. We have created a lead collection system in the back end that works sort of really well integrated with our content management system. And so if you're a marketer that's working with us and you've posted your company's content to our site of any of those types, well, especially I think downloadable content or video, you are going to also get access to some degree, depending on what you're doing with us, to the information of who's consuming your content on our site. And that's part of our terms and conditions for our members. so it's sort of an all digital, sort of very streamlined process, self-service to upload, create your content, and then and get the leads back. And that also extends to webcasts. So if we promote a webcast for a marketer, obviously they'll get registration information about who joined their event. And we're doing that for dozens of companies at any given point in time with different activities, different programs for each one. And we really tend to customize them because obviously marketers have different calendars and different priorities at different times of year, different segments, as I mentioned. That's really another key part of it. So like, there are members of our site who never see a particular ISV's content because it's just outside of what they care about, or partner for that matter. So yeah, that's what we do, and we're very serious about delivering those results. Almost every client we have has a real demand gen goal, as opposed to just looking for general branding.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, and especially since what's interesting, about MS Dynamics World is that you've got tens of thousands, of actual partners. But there's also even more users, like potential customers, right? That are part of the site, and I think it's it's a pretty healthy ratio.
Yeah, it's fairly evenly split. So it's, about even parts customers and partners. Those make up sort of the main parts of our site. Yeah.
Well, where I'm going to, like for the listeners in the IMCP community, so it's like you have opportunities, like if you're interested in, expanding your own partner channel, right? With certain, Dynamics partners, you can provide, some of that sponsor, well, either some awareness content or some sponsored content for direct, type of, lead gen activity. But there's also opportunities like to go direct to some of the customers, correct? Right? Because the audience is about half. There's a lot of opportunities for, business development, for our IMCP members that, should there be content, the content, fits the criteria, of MS, Dynamics World. Am I understanding that correctly, Jason, or am I like way off?
Yeah, that's totally accurate. I mean, it's very common for us to be running different campaigns focused on those dimensions, right? So one will be focused on EMEA versus North America. One event will be we'll do an event for partners, and then a case study aimed at users. I mean, all for the same vendor. So, or the same marketing team, I should say. So that's super common, and oftentimes they're going on at the same time, and different audiences are seeing them. You know what I mean?
Well, I could see a lot of possibilities. So for IMCP listeners, a shameless plug. If you need help kind of navigating how to position yourself, give me a call. For sure. No, that's fantastic. I mean, that's really, really exciting. Rudy, you had something?
Yeah, no. So where are you seeing the most growth? Are you seeing it in Business Central or F&O, or what opportunities are you seeing out
I'd
there?
probably say Business Central is our fastest growing audience right now. F&O is also very strong, and CE has always been strong and sort of has, I would say, been steady. The other one, Power Platforms, the other area, broadly speaking, and it's harder to segment that because Power Platform, it's a bunch of services all together. They're not products the way the Dynamics ones are. But like we run surveys periodically, and in our last reader survey, where we were kind of taking the temperature of partners and of customers around buying habits and things like that. Maybe that's a topic for another episode. But we noticed that with the most common responses were BC, CE, and then Power Platform kind of was third, where it probably wouldn't have been third a couple of years ago. And I think because it's so universal across all the Dynamics products, that we're seeing a lot more uptake of an interest in Power Platform.
So since you brought up Power Platform, are you seeing a lot of movement in BI, or is it more Power Apps, where people can automate more stuff in Business Central?
Well, I mean, they're both growing. For our coverage, I mean, Power BI has really it's kind of bifurcated right away from what is considered part of Power Platform. I think technically, to some degree, it's all part of the same product line still. I'm actually not sure 100% sure that's accurate, but it's still mostly part of Power Platform. You'll see it on the same slides anyway, some of the time. But our focus has really stuck with the other elements of Power platform. Power BI, we mostly cover it in the context of Fabric now, which is not our main focus, but obviously it is relevant. So we end up sort of looking at the application and application related, process related, and data management related sort of Dataverse stuff, I would say, and Copilot Studio now.
So, how have you seen, the Power Platform affect other competitors, that Microsoft had, especially in the automation world, competitors like Nintex or things like that? How have you seen Microsoft's growth in that?
They've been a healthy competitor, I think is the best way to put it. I think, aligning their, Power Automates, I would say it's a bit of a controversial product at this point in time. I think it's had a lot of promise over the years, but, the rise of Copilot Studio has raised questions about what its future is. I think Microsoft will continue to compete as a process automation vendor against competitors like an Nintex and others, as an RPA vendor against others. And I think just their size and their scope and their willingness to invest makes them relevant no matter what.
Are you seeing any, are you documenting a lot of these use cases of people, using these products like this?
In terms of like Power Automate and RPA
Yeah.
scenarios, things like
Mhm,
that.
mhm. Yeah.
We could be doing more of it, I would say. I've been busier tracking the product itself and not telling as many stories in that area as we probably could.
Okay. Is that something that IMCP members could bring to you and you could help publish some of that stuff? I think that
Yeah, for
would help.
sure. I mean, we love customer win stories and success stories, especially in unique industries and things like that. So, if you ever have, for your listeners, if you ever have a great story to tell about clients or about kind of achievements that aren't just about yourself, like not just about your company, especially, we love to hear those, and we love to bring people in to get involved in writing those, or we can even help write them for teams, if they need a little bit of assistance. I mean, that's something we're very good at, I would say.
All right. Well, this is a shameless plug for my good friend Jeff Goldstein. Jeff, there's an opportunity for you right here. I know you have a lot of stories that you can bring forward.
Yeah, yeah. I should be telling more of Jeff's good stories.
Yeah. I used to hang around a lot with Jeff, and so that's why I know Jeff really, really well. And he's the one who really got me interested in it way back in the Toronto days, where I got to meet the whole Dynamics team through Jeff,
Oh
and
wow.
I really dived into it. And I'm trying to remember the gentleman's name that we met who was heading up the Dynamics team at that time. But I got a 3-hour briefing from Microsoft on what they saw as the growth of the Dynamics channel. So I've been really encouraged by that. And that's why I encourage partners who, if you're looking at evolving your business and moving into different areas, that's definitely Dynamics is definitely one. And having the right people to help you implement that stuff is really important.
Agreed. And I think there's a lot of partnership happening, but there's probably a lot more networking, and there's a lot more connection. There are a lot more potential connections to be made, I think I would say.
Yeah. Well, there's significant opportunities because the one thing, having been involved in this space for a long time, and I even started before Microsoft even dived into this business. I actually started in the accounting world and with products
Okay.
like Mass 90 and things like that. And so it's really interesting to see the evolution of this entire business, and people just need to commit to it because it is a learning process. It is a learning process. And you have to be very familiar with business processes to really help your customers achieve more, which is really
Yeah.
important.
Microsoft has a real goal of bringing more M365 and D365 customers together. They're uniting their own marketing around those two. Um, so I think we'll see encouragement from Microsoft on that point. But it can't be forced. I mean, partners have to believe in it and they have to be prepared for it. So hopefully we can do coverage on that, as it continues to evolve. And we see it to some extent with some partners who do advertise with us and do events and so forth, that they want to make other partners aware of what they can bring to the table.
So in your opinion, what's the best way for our IMCP partners to stay plugged into what your organization is doing? What latest news, research, and opportunities are there? I know they can register on your site, but is there any other way they can stay more plugged in?
Yeah, so I mean that's the best first step is register. You'll get access to our newsletters. You'll see sort of on a weekly, monthly basis what we're doing and what we're covering. Who else is publishing content to the site over time of all sorts. And as that all grows, I think it hopefully paints a picture of what we're about. But then yeah, you can contact me directly. If you have content ideas or questions. I'm Jason at MSDynamicsWorld.com. If you have sales questions, you can just send them to sales at MSDynamicsWorld or just ask me. I'll tell you, or I'll pass you along to my colleague Adam, who tends to run sales. But those are the best ways. We try to keep it really, really simple in terms of how you interact with us and what we're doing.
And I'd like to piggyback on that. So after they register, and because there's so many ways, so many opportunities, right? If someone wants to maximize the value of MS Dynamics World, what's your top tip? Just give me one for making them and say, listen, if you register, make sure you do this one thing, and everybody can get tremendous value, out if they do this one thing.
That is a great question. I hate to say it depends, so I'll just say open the newsletters. Open the newsletters up. You'll see.
Or since he's not here, call Adam
Yeah.
Flood his voicemail.
Adam loves to answer every question you have. No, he literally will. He'll answer.
Yeah.
He never stops answering questions. He'll respond to anything. I try to too. His patience is better than mine. But yeah, I would say open the newsletters. You'll see sort of everything that you missed in the last week. If you take a look at that, and you'll really kind of get the full picture, I think, on a it's a biweekly newsletter. So you'll get a sort of on a biweekly basis, almost a full understanding of everything that's going on the site. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, follow us on LinkedIn if that would be the other one.
Yeah. That's kind of a just segue really to my last question. I mean, this has been great. You've been very generous with your time. So I want to thank you right out for that. What's the best way for folks to connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not, other than registering at the site, follow us on LinkedIn. We'll repost most of our content there. That's original reporting, at least, and sort of new stuff that we're developing on our side, as well as events that are coming up and all that, and event coverage that we do for in-person events. So yeah, LinkedIn.
Okay. And for those listening, we'll have all those links in the show notes so they'll be able to easily access that information. Well, Jason, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much. And we'll definitely have to do it again sometime. You have to drag Adam into it, man. Come on.
Yeah. We'll have to get some IAMCP representation in our podcast in an episode soon too. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. You have a great day.
Take care, Jason.
Well, that was a great episode. I really appreciate, Jason for taking so much time joining us and sharing not only just the story behind MS Dynamics World, but also how, the collaboration with IMCP can open up a lot of new doors, for our members.
Oh, absolutely. I think it was great talking to Jason. He had some great stories to share, and there's real opportunities for IAMCP members as well. The fact that MS Dynamics World has been around for almost 20 years and has over 100,000 registered users on their site and 30,000 partners. Those are great numbers, and gives with a broad reach like that, there's a great opportunity for our members to be able to contribute to their site. One of the stories that he shared was that companies can now blog on their site as well. So the opportunity there, one, to get access to a ton of content that's going to help them grow their business, help them introduce them to ISVs and other types of partners that can help them grow their Dynamics business. And now they can also expand their reach to a much broader market with their own blogs. That's a great opportunity for IAMCP members. And I was very thankful for Jason sharing that with us. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. And just to kind of piggyback on the the ability not only for them to get the exposure, build the awareness, get the education, but also what I found really intriguing was just the opportunities on the demand gen side. And for those that are listening, if you check out MSDWmarketing.com, that's where you can access like the media kit and some of the advertising opportunities. Not only so if you're wanting to market to partners, or if you're wanting to market to end users and consumers, just a lot of really great opportunities, to build upon, some of the things that you're talking about, like if they're wanting to generate leads. The other thing that I thought was really interesting, and it made me smile, Rudy, just because it made me really appreciate what we're doing, here at IMCP, is that, like one of the gaps that they have is just in trying to, gather and tell those stories. Well, that's something IMCP has been working really hard at doing. And so there's an opportunity for our members, going back to like the content contribution piece, to share, not stories just about themselves really, but more so partner stories of how it's creating value, for the customers, and these customer success stories. So for our members, there's a real opportunity for that type of content to contribute that would, one, stand out, be very appealing, for MSDW, but also, build the awareness for our partners. So I thought that was pretty cool. So I want to just encourage, like, for everyone listening, it was a great episode. Here's your next steps. Visit www.MSDynamicsWorld.com to explore their news, events, and partner resources. You're also just look out for upcoming joint IAMCP and MSDW initiatives. As well as, and don't be afraid to reach out if you've got some expertise or stories to share.
So we want to thank all of you for joining us on this episode of IMCP Profiles in Partnership, powered by Dynamis Marketing. We hope you enjoyed this podcast and find it useful and inspiring. You can find links to everything we discussed in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to Profiles in Partnership on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, I'm still Rudy Rodriguez, and this has been Profiles in Partnership, where Microsoft partners come to connect, learn, and grow. To learn more, visit the website at www.iamcp.org.